What if I told you that a 20-year-old girl from the Philippines, a country that had never produced a tennis champion, never built a Grand Slam tradition, never even appeared on the sports radar, just became the most financially valuable player in women's tennis history? Not because she won Wimbledon. Not because she swept a Grand Slam. But because she made the right people so nervous that they threw $500 million at her just to control what she does next. That's where we are. And once you understand how we got here, you'll never look at professional sports the same way again. Alex's story doesn't start with a trophy or a viral highlight. It starts with a plane ticket. A 13-year-old girl leaving Quezon City, Philippines, crossing the world to train at Rafael Nadal's academy in Manacor, Spain. Think about what that takes. Not just talent, courage. The kind that doesn't make noise, doesn't announce itself, just quietly gets on the plane and gets to work. She spent years on those clay courts absorbing a philosophy that Nadal himself built his entire legacy on: discipline over drama, process over spectacle, character over everything. She graduated from that academy in 2023, and then she started doing things nobody was ready for. March 2025. She's ranked 140th in the world. She gets a wild card into the Miami Open, which is basically tennis's way of saying, here's your shot, don't embarrass yourself. Alex did not get the memo. She eliminated Madison Keys. She then walked onto the court against Iga Swiatek, the world number 2, and dismantled her 6-2, 7-5 like it was a practice session. She reached the semifinals of a WTA 1000 event as a wild card, ranked 140th in the world. Let that settle. The Philippines didn't just celebrate, it erupted. Matches were being broadcast across every time zone where Filipino communities existed. Fans showed up at practice courts before the sun came up. Autograph lines stretched so far that security genuinely didn't know what to do. Sports journalist Diane Castillo wrote that Alex was already being treated like a multiple Grand Slam champion before she'd won a single WTA title. Sky Sports presenter Gigi Salmon said something even more striking at a London tennis event, that in terms of pure star power, the crowds that follow her, the atmosphere she creates, Alex might already be the biggest name in the sport. Not the most decorated. Not the highest ranked. The biggest. There's a difference, and that difference is exactly what made the next chapter inevitable. By March 2026, Alex had climbed to world number 29. Nike had signed her. Rolex had signed her. Globe Telecom, Bank of the Philippine Islands, Milo, major corporations were lining up. But here's the thing that really caught the attention of the people who matter in global sports finance. Analysts weren't calculating what Alex was worth inside the WTA. They were calculating what she was worth outside it. Because her fan base wasn't just big, it was untapped. A 115 million person nation with no previous tennis identity suddenly obsessed with one woman. Filipino diaspora communities from the Middle East to North America filling stadiums, watching live streams at 3 a.m., making her matches feel like national events. Industry insiders started drawing comparisons to Emma Raducanu after her 2021 US Open miracle, but multiplied across 3 of the fastest growing economies on the planet. Someone in Riyadh was watching all of this very carefully. And they didn't see a tennis player. They saw a continent of untapped commercial territory with one person standing at the center of it. Now, before we get into the offer itself, you need to understand what Saudi Arabia had already built inside professional tennis, because what happened next only makes sense once you see the full picture. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund controls roughly $925 billion. And over the past several years, they've been systematically buying their way into every corner of global sport: LIV Golf, Newcastle United in the Premier League, Formula One race hosting deals, boxing promotions. Tennis was no different. In 2024, PIF became the official naming rights sponsor of the PIF WTA rankings, the literal leaderboard that defines every player's standing in professional women's tennis. The WTA finals relocated to Riyadh for 3 consecutive years. The prize money for the 2025 edition hit a record $15.5 million. WTA Ventures announced a 24% revenue increase in its first full operational year, with a massive chunk of that growth tied directly to Saudi funding. Rafael Nadal signed a reported $750 million ambassador deal with the Saudi Tennis Federation. Carlos Alcaraz flew to Riyadh. Jannik Sinner flew to Riyadh. Taylor Fritz didn't even try to dress it up, he said. "Show me a tournament where you can play 3 matches and potentially make $6 million. The WTA had essentially invited Saudi Arabia through the front door, celebrated the money, rebranded their own rankings with PIF's name, and called it a partnership for the future of women's sport. So here's the question that becomes unavoidable. After all of that, after welcoming Saudi capital into every corner of their ecosystem, what happens when that same capital goes directly to the player instead of the institution? That's the moment everything cracked. The offer that came out of Riyadh wasn't a sponsorship. It wasn't an ambassador arrangement with a few promotional appearances and a nice annual fee. It was a $500 million, decade-long proposal designed to extract Alex's entire commercial identity from the WTA ecosystem and anchor it inside Saudi Arabia's expanding tennis empire. $500 million. For one 20-year-old. For context, Alex's total career prize money at that point was approximately $1.49 million. Her entire professional earnings across years of competition didn't come close to 1% of what Saudi Arabia just put on the table. The WTA had celebrated its record $249 million total prize pool in 2025. That was for the entire tour, hundreds of players, dozens of tournaments, an entire calendar year. Saudi Arabia was offering double that for one person over 10 years. When those numbers got out, and they did get out, the reaction inside the WTA wasn't strategic. It was panic. Because Alex wasn't just a great young player they didn't want to lose. She was the linchpin of their entire Southeast Asian growth strategy. The WTA had spent years identifying Southeast Asia as the most critical untapped commercial market for the sport's future. They had targets around tripling revenue between 2023 and 2029. A huge portion of that projection rested on converting the Philippines and surrounding markets into genuine tennis territories. Alex was already doing that organically, with zero institutional help. She was bringing Filipino audiences to tournaments they'd never watched, driving broadcast numbers in markets the WTA had failed to penetrate for decades. If she left, they didn't just lose a player. They lost the audience. All of it. Those fans weren't WTA fans who happened to love Alex, they were Alex fans who were watching the WTA because she played in it. The distinction sounds small. The financial consequences were enormous. Internal discussions reportedly described the situation with a word that almost never gets attached to a single player outside the top 5 in the world. Existential. A 20-year-old ranked 29th was holding the financial survival of a governing institution in her hands. Now here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable, and the WTA knew it. Because everything Saudi Arabia was offering Alex, financial recognition of her true market value, commercial infrastructure, a platform scaled to her actual audience, was exactly what the WTA had claimed to be building for its players when it first accepted Saudi money. The organization had justified the PIF partnership through the language of player empowerment. More prize money. Global expansion. Elevating women's sport. Marina Storti, CEO of WTA Ventures, had publicly declared the mission was to fuel reinvestment in the sport and champion their athletes. But when the same capital that funded those ambitions went directly to an athlete bypassing the institution entirely, the framing flipped overnight from partnership to crisis. Tennis fans noticed immediately. The hypocrisy was sitting right there in the open. The WTA couldn't simultaneously argue that Saudi money was transforming women's tennis into a commercial powerhouse and then claim it was suddenly dangerous when that same money went to an individual player rather than through the WTA's own channels. The only principle separating acceptable Saudi capital from unacceptable Saudi capital was whether the WTA got a cut. Alex's camp understood this completely. She had been shaped by Nadal's philosophy not just technically, but professionally. Nadal himself had navigated Saudi partnerships, academy controversies, and institutional criticism with a consistency that his critics struggled to counter. He had said publicly that he accepted critics, especially those who criticize while respecting other people. That framework, principled engagement, no defensive collapse, was baked into how Alex approached the world. She wasn't naive. She wasn't indifferent to the political complexity of the offer. But she was 20 years old, climbing fast, holding a proposal that dwarfed anything the WTA structure had ever delivered to a player at her stage, and asking a question that nobody in tennis leadership could answer cleanly. Why should she accept the institution's valuation of her worth when the open market had just revealed something entirely different? To understand what Saudi Arabia actually wanted to build with a $500 million commitment to Alex, you have to understand how their sports investment strategy works, because it's never purely about the sport itself. Every acquisition they make fits inside a coherent framework, buy cultural credibility through sporting excellence, then use that credibility to reshape Saudi Arabia's global image and domestic social narrative simultaneously. LIV Golf wasn't about golf. Newcastle United wasn't about football. The WTA Finals in Riyadh wasn't about tennis. They were each pieces of a much larger project, and Alex fits that project with a precision that no other available athlete in the world quite matches right now. She's 20, with a decade of peak competitive years ahead of her. She's Southeast Asian, connecting to demographics that Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 program has specifically identified as strategic relationship priorities. She's a woman, providing the kind of visibility that Saudi officials have increasingly pointed to as evidence of social modernization. And she's an authentic story, not a manufactured celebrity, not a marketing creation, but a documented underdog from a city in the Philippines who trained on Spanish clay until she was good enough to beat the world's best. The comparisons Filipino sports journalists made to Manny Pacquiao weren't sentimental. They were demographic analysis. Pacquiao didn't just win fights. He was a national spiritual event. His victories reorganized the rhythm of life across the Philippines for the hours he was in the ring. Alex's matches were beginning to carry that same weight. A $500 million investment in that trajectory doesn't buy a tennis player. It purchases a bridge between Saudi Arabia's sovereign ambitions and 115 million Filipinos, plus diaspora communities scattered across the Middle East, North America, East Asia, and Europe who follow her regardless of what time zone they're in or what round she's playing. For the WTA, the math was catastrophic either way. If Alex signed, they lost Southeast Asia's commercial future to an external power. If she walked away from the offer, Saudi Arabia had already demonstrated the playbook, and they'd simply move to the next highest value target with the same methodology. The $500 million number had already done its damage before a single document was signed. It had proven publicly and irrefutably that the WTA had been dramatically undervaluing its own most important asset. And that revelation opened a door that couldn't be closed. If Alex was worth $500 million to an outside bidder, what were the other players worth? What was the WTA leaving on the table in every commercial negotiation it had ever entered? Every player on tour with any commercial profile was now looking at this situation and doing the math on their own behalf. The WTA hadn't just stumbled into a bidding war over one player. They'd walked into an audit of their entire model. Go back to November 2025, a quiet moment in the middle of all this chaos. Nadal returns to a tennis court for the first time, exactly 1 year after his final professional match. He's practicing with Alex. She describes him as being back like he never left. He posts simply, 1 year later, it felt great to be back. Two left-handed players on a shared court in Manacor, and somewhere underneath all the commercial warfare surrounding them both, something much simpler: the love of the game that started all of this. Alex once told a Philippine broadcaster that what she admired most about Nadal wasn't the 22 Grand Slams or the clay court records or the way he kept coming back from injuries that would have finished anyone else. It was that he was still so nice to everyone around him. Grounded. Human. Present. She signed autographs in Qatar after a first-round loss when most players disappear into the locker room because she understood that every interaction with every fan carried weight beyond the personal moment. She cried at Eastbourne after her first WTA final, talking about historic firsts for the Philippines, saying it was the first time any Filipina had done anything at that level, and meaning every word. She didn't check her phone for 4 days during Miami 2 locked in, which meant she missed a congratulatory message from Nadal himself, and then apologized to a 22-time Grand Slam champion with genuine sincerity. That's who Saudi Arabia wants to put at the center of their tennis expansion. That's who the WTA cannot afford to lose. And that's who, at 20 years old and ranked 29th in the world, holds more institutional leverage than any player in women's tennis history who wasn't simultaneously holding a Grand Slam trophy. The WTA spent years building a global expansion argument around finding the next transformational figure, someone who could open new territories, convert casual observers into devoted audiences, and make the sport feel necessary to people who'd never cared about it before. They found her. She developed at someone else's academy, under someone else's mentorship, and became globally recognizable before the organization even fully understood what they were looking at. And now an outside power has valued her at a number that exposes every missed opportunity, every structural blind spot, every moment the WTA's commercial machinery failed to see what was right in front of them. Saudi Arabia's $500 million offer didn't shatter precedent by accident. It was a statement calculated, deliberate, and aimed